In the shadowy world of organized crime, few names carry as much fear and fascination as Necati Arabaci. A former high-ranking member of the notorious motorcycle club known as the Hells Angels, Arabaci built a reputation rooted in violence, manipulation, and power. His life reads like a crime thriller, filled with underground dealings, international operations, and a dramatic transformation into a controversial public figure. But how does a man associated with organized crime become a social media sensation? How does someone with such a dark past reappear in glamorous cities like Monaco and attract attention not just from law enforcement, but from the public as well? This is the story of power, reinvention, and the thin line between infamy and fame. Necati Arabaci was born in Turkey, but much of his rise to power took place in Germany. It was there that he became involved with the Hells Angels, an organization widely known not just for motorcycles and leather jackets, but for its alleged involvement in organized crime across multiple countries. The club has long been linked to activities such as drug trafficking, arms dealing, extortion, and human exploitation. Arabaci was not an ordinary member. He quickly climbed the ranks and became a leading figure within the organization's German chapter. Those who encountered him described him as strategic, calculating, and ruthless. He understood that in the underworld, loyalty and fear are forms of currency. Power belonged to those who could command both. His rise was rapid and intense. He became deeply involved in criminal enterprises, particularly in areas tied to brothels, extortion, and human trafficking. Authorities later alleged that he controlled large prostitution networks and managed operations that generated millions in illegal profits. Unlike others who focused primarily on drugs or weapons, Arabaci allegedly carved out influence in the business of exploitation. Money flowed, and with it came status. Expensive cars, designer clothing, luxury properties. Arabaci embraced the image of success. But for him, wealth was not just about comfort. It was about control. It symbolized dominance over rivals and authority over those who worked under him. Behind the scenes, he maintained tight operational control. He was known for thinking several steps ahead, ensuring that anyone who owed him money paid quickly, and that betrayal carried consequences. In criminal organizations, reputation is everything. Arabaci built one that discouraged opposition. As his influence grew, so did the attention of law enforcement. European authorities, along with international agencies such as Interpol, began targeting organized crime networks more aggressively in the early 2000s. Arabaci became a prime focus of investigations. In 2004, German authorities arrested him during operations aimed at dismantling organized crime structures. He was convicted on charges related to pimping and human trafficking and sentenced to prison. For many powerful figures in organized crime, imprisonment marks the end of influence. But in Arabaci's case, it did not entirely sever his connections. Even while incarcerated, reports suggested he retained influence through loyal associates. Criminal networks often rely on deeply rooted relationships, and Arabaci had built many of them over years. After serving his sentence, he was deported to Turkey. Many assumed this marked the end of his prominence in Europe. However, instead of disappearing, Arabaci adapted. He began rebuilding networks and establishing new connections, reportedly operating more discreetly than before. Then came a surprising development. Arabaci reappeared in Monaco, a place more commonly associated with luxury yachts, casinos, and elite lifestyles than organized crime. The tiny principality on the French Riviera is known worldwide for its wealth and glamour. It seemed an unlikely backdrop for someone with his history. Yet Monaco became part of his reinvention. No longer just a figure whispered about in criminal investigations, Arabaci began cultivating a public image. Luxury cars, high-end apartments, lavish settings, his lifestyle was visible and carefully presented. Social media platforms, including TikTok, amplified this image. It was a dramatic shift. Instead of hiding in the shadows, he appeared to embrace visibility. Videos and photos showcased a confident, affluent persona. To some viewers, he embodied the rebellious outlaw archetype. To others, he represented something far darker, a reminder of how crime can sometimes intersect with celebrity culture. This transformation raises important questions. How does someone associated with serious criminal allegations become a figure of fascination online? Why are audiences drawn to controversial figures with violent pasts? Part of the answer lies in modern media culture. Social platforms reward spectacle. They reward confidence, luxury, and bold personas. The line between notoriety and fame has blurred. For some viewers, the backstory becomes secondary to the image being projected. But behind the polished image, the complexities remain. Organized crime does not simply vanish because someone posts glamorous content. Law enforcement agencies across Europe continue to cooperate more closely than ever. Advances in surveillance, intelligence sharing, and digital monitoring make it harder for large criminal networks to operate unnoticed. Authorities remain aware that criminal empires often function across borders. Arabaci's reported connections once stretched between Europe and Turkey, reflecting the increasingly international nature of organized crime. Networks are built not only on intimidation, but also on relationships and strategic alliances. Yet criminal organizations are inherently unstable. They depend on loyalty that can easily turn into betrayal. Rivals compete for territory and influence. Associates may cooperate with authorities in exchange for reduced sentences. The same system that elevates powerful figures can dismantle them just as quickly. Arabaci's continued visibility also creates risk. The more attention someone attracts, the more scrutiny follows. While public fascination may bring status, it can also make secrecy impossible. What makes Arabaci's story especially compelling is his ability to reinvent himself. Many individuals connected to organized crime either disappear from public life or remain permanently in the shadows. He, however, stepped into the spotlight. Whether that spotlight represents confidence, defiance, or calculated branding is open to interpretation. There is also a broader cultural dimension. Society has long been intrigued by figures who operate outside the law. From classic gangster films to modern crime documentaries, audiences are drawn to stories of power, danger, and rebellion. Arabaci's story fits into that narrative, a real-life figure whose path mirrors elements of fiction. However, it is essential to separate fascination from admiration. Organized crime leaves real victims in its wake. Human trafficking, exploitation, violence, these are not abstract concepts. They carry lasting consequences for individuals and communities. Arabaci's life can be viewed as a cautionary tale about ambition unchecked by ethics. His rise demonstrates how intelligence, strategic thinking, and charisma can be used for destructive purposes. His reinvention illustrates how modern media can reshape public perception. The future remains uncertain. International law enforcement cooperation continues to strengthen. Agencies track financial flows, digital communications, and cross-border activities more effectively than in the past. At the same time, criminal networks evolve, adapting to new technologies and new forms of visibility. Will Arabaci maintain his influence? Will increased scrutiny eventually dismantle any remaining networks tied to his past? Or will he successfully distance himself from former activities and redefine his legacy? History shows that criminal empires rarely last forever. They rise through opportunity and power, and they fall through exposure, betrayal, or internal conflict. The only question is when. What is undeniable is that Necati Arabaci has left a mark. He moved from the streets of Germany's underworld to international headlines. From prison sentences to luxury displays in Monaco, his journey has been anything but ordinary. His name continues to provoke strong reactions: fear, curiosity, criticism, and debate. Whether viewed as a mastermind, a symbol of excess, or a warning sign of how crime and celebrity can intersect, he remains a figure that commands attention. In the end, his story reflects more than one man's path. It reflects the changing landscape of organized crime in the digital age. It reflects how power can be built in darkness, yet displayed in daylight. And it forces us to question why society is so often captivated by those who operate beyond the law. The saga of Necati Arabaci is not just about crime. It is about reinvention, perception, and the fragile balance between influence and downfall. And as long as that balance remains uncertain, his story will continue to intrigue.